Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. And of course, a special welcome to our listeners on love101.org. And if you are overseas and on the move, US listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you are in the UK, 0330-332-6541, or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM, Facebook, and YouTube Live. In the main watch, tackling illegal and inappropriate behavior among high school students. And in the second watch, defeating crime. And for our social media question, we ask, how much confidence do you have in our security forces and crime plan? Share your responses in our Facebook or YouTube, Love 101 FM Jamaica Live, and also WhatsApp comments and voice notes too. 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share a comments later on in the program, but first, here's our quote. Do we have the I quote?
Can you hear me, Stokeley?
Oh, I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Okay, wonderful. It is better to be hated for what you are than to be loved for what you are not. Andre Gide.
Good day, DJ.
Hi, how are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm wonderful. The main watch, we'll be back after this break.
Okay.
Get ready for another exciting World of Worship Wednesday inside Alive, 1 to 5, April 6th. Stick around for Prayer Blast at 2 o'clock. More prayer, more power. 2:15, we feature Dunstan Ohiken as our worship artist of the day. Then at 3 p.m. inside the Drama House, we talk all things making lemonade. Join us and share your views as we explore the characters, the storyline, favorites, and what you've been missing. All this and more will come your way inside Alive, 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. with me, your host, Sarah and the Chirpy One on the Family Station, Love 101.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokely Marshall. We are now in the main watch. Now, since the reopening of schools from a lengthy closure, some of our children have been making the headlines, but in a regrettable way. There's a lot of news, which is not good. We have read about fights with deadly weapons, the breaches of the Dangerous Drugs Act, unfortunately, students dying, police seizing weapons, including knives, scissors, and jammers. And then the question is, what are jammers? What is it with all this inappropriate behavior and even illegal behavior among our high school students? And how should it be tackled? We have online today to have a conversation and a discussion to see what solutions we can look towards. Mr. Feliciano Thorpe, guidance counselor, psychology instructor at the Vocational Training Development Institute. Often the abbreviation VTDI is used to describe it. We also have Bishop Dr. Rohan Edwards, Bishop, founder, general overseer of the Lighthouse Assembly Ministries. Mr. Thorpe, Bishop Edwards, good day to both of you. How are you? Mr. Thorpe, you are with us. Bishop Edwards? Bishop, are you with us, Bishop? Well, we have Mr. Thorpe. Mr. Thorpe, good day to you, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Stokely Marshall. How are you?
I'm fine, sir. I'm fine. Very well. And how are you, sir?
I'm wonderful, giving God thanks for another awesome day.
Wonderful. Great, 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 great. Now, whilst we wait for Bishop uh, Edwards to come on the line, there is reference to a recent story, sir, where a number of implements were seized from students.
Mm-hmm.
And there are multiple reports about violence in schools, students getting into fights. And there was a time when, yes, these things occurred, but it didn't appear to be as prevalent as they are now. Uh, in the absence of specific statistics, because a lot of these recent incidents, there may not as yet be any empirical data
Okay.
to show any increase or decrease, as the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
But to the extent that they are occurring, they are of major concern. Now, you are an experienced guidance counselor. We know that you are now at VTDI, but you also have experience in relation to the high school system. What
Yes.
would you say is the challenge while we're experiencing what we're experiencing at this time?
Oh, I'm still a school counselor, though, at the primary level. So I'm
Okay,
still working in the school, all
okay,
right?
okay,
So I'm
okay,
still
okay.
working with children. So I do encounter these things. Um, why we are all seeing most of these things? The truth is, it has really been there, but it's maybe more pronounced now because our students haven't been in school for almost 2 years, so they are more, I would say, more exposed to certain social ills and conditions that have brought them into exposure with more violent or more criminal activities, unfortunately, because the pandemic has certainly removed the level of stability that school brought to children. And they are no more exposed to things that the school was kind of sheltering them from. And unfortunately, a lot of our, especially our teenagers, have been more exposed. I have more time to be exposed to some of these elements and situations, unfortunately.
And well, can you say whether you believe the incidence is greater among boys versus girls, or you're not seeing a major distinction?
I am not seeing a major distinction, but usually the data indicates that boys are more aggressive, are more the ones utilizing or developing these kind of what they call maladaptive behaviors. But lately, based upon what I'm seeing on social media, I'm seeing the girls as well um, acting out many of these kind of aggressive behaviors.
Very interesting. Bishop Edwards, are you now with us, sir? Bishop? Okay, your volume seems to be a little bit low, but maybe we can resolve that in a moment. But Bishop, whilst we resolve that technical issue, there's a recent news item. Well, a Gleaner writer, Rasbert Turner, he put out a piece here, March 31, 2022, and it reads as follows. And I'm not reading all of it. Two St. Catherine based high school boys have been arrested and charged with breaches of the Dangerous Drugs Act. They were held with ganja yesterday during a search as part of the police crackdown on violence in schools. The boys are booked to appear in the St. Catherine Parish Court. And one more paragraph of the story. The police say cops seized coconut drops infused with ganja
Hmm.
and numerous weapons, including knives, scissors, and jammers for students. Bishop, this is a St. Catherine based incident or incidents. Any comments, sir? Because that is your parish.
This is what I've been dealing with on a daily basis. I've visited some of the
On a daily
schools
basis.
here
On a daily basis.
on a daily basis. Yes, I've been visiting some of the schools, and I've been told by one school in particular, won't mention the name, that over 200 boys in that particular school are delinquent. So you can imagine when you have one school with over 200 boys delinquent, what to expect. Now, let me say what is creating the mayhem, not only in our schools, but across our communities here in Spanish Town and across the island of Jamaica. Violence is produced from several roots. Number one, lack of fathers in homes. Okay? That's number one. Number two, when there's conscience that's scared, because of a lack of knowledge of right from wrong, this cause from the whole aspect of parents, especially fathers, being absent in their homes. Parents are not sending their children to Sunday school as before. No Christian moral teachings at home. Violence portrayed in popular culture. And one of the culture that is breathing violence in our country is music. Music, because some of the DJs who are serving Satan themselves are producing lyrics. That the boys are picking up these lyrics and doing what the artist told them to do in their song.
Now, Bishop, I'm asking you to stick up in there for a moment. When you made reference to DJs and Satan, are you saying that they are literally worshiping the devil?
Oh Lord, man, I just did a study with my people a while ago, where we show them the lyrics that some of these artists are putting out there, telling you how you must pick up, and they mention Spanish Town, that you must pick up the gun and bust the skull and make the marrow fly. I will mention the DJ that said those words in his song, right? So when they
so we now know what you mean. I thought maybe you had some anecdotal or other information to suggest that some DJs are actually worshiping Lucifer.
Yes, I could show you the lyrics of the name and the names of the DJs, because they put it out there. They don't have no qualms about it. They put these lyrics out there so that you can listen to what they're saying. Have them written up. So what do you expect, right?
Now, Bishop, without telling any details that you're not allowed to tell, or that for confidentiality reasons you can't go into. When you say you deal with these issues on a daily basis,
right?
when you say you deal with these matters on a daily basis, in what context? I mean, you go into the schools, these are persons you interact with in a church? How?
All right. Up to Sunday, a parent took a guard ring from a student and brought it to me. Two other parents told me that their kids are involved in scamming, and they had to go to the other man to get the guard ring, and the guard ring is what they're using to protect themselves. That is a dangerous thing. I have to deal with
Bishop, hold that thought. Bishop, we are already upon a break, and we don't want to lose I don't want you to lose your train of thought, sir. Hold that thought. Listeners, please stay with us. We'll be right back on the Morning Watch.
Chunky, spicy, and delicious. Lasco mackerel. Get hooked on the tastiest mackerel around. The time by Lasco mackerel is
7:15 a.m.
For sale. It's our third look at this place. Let's buy.
Here we come. Home ownership is a big deal, so move in merrily with CIBC First Caribbean. With your new mortgage, you'll get half off the appraisal cost, commitment fee, and more. Enjoy up to 95% financing and a homeowner benefits card, redeemable at selected hardware, furniture, and appliance stores.
Nice zone. We moved in.
Merrily.
Terms and conditions apply. Visit CIBCFCIB.com/move merrily for details.
Phoenix Health and Vision Center now has 2 locations. St. Anne's Bay, 65 Main Street beside the health center. And now Shop 30 Champion Plaza, Falmouth, Trelawney. You heard me right. Shop 30 Champion Plaza, Falmouth, Trelawney. The only full-service eye care center for all your designer frames and designer glasses. Plus complete eye care. Book all your appointments now in St. Anne's Bay. Call 876-972-2388. 876-589-8327. For Falmouth and its environs, call this number 876-533-0540. Looking forward to seeing you at both locations. Phoenix Health and Vision Center. Now at Champion Plaza, Falmouth, Trelawney.
Hello and welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in the main watch. We're having a conversation with Feliciano Thorpe. Mr. Thorpe is a guidance counselor and psychology instructor at VTDI, and also Bishop Dr. Rohan Edwards. Bishop, founder, general overseer of the Lighthouse Assembly Ministries. And we're looking at, here in this main watch, tackling illegal and inappropriate behavior among high school students. Bishop Edwards, just before the break, you're making a very interesting point and a deeply concerning point where, if I were to summarize what you're saying accurately, there is clearly some occultic activity taking place. And I think you're suggesting that that might have something to do with the violence and the inappropriate behavior and the illegal behavior among high school students. Please continue, Bishop.
Yes. No, what I'm trying to say, as I said, I've had some experiences where some of these parents actually told me what their boys are doing with that is scamming and what the other men are doing. What the other man is they're doing, they'll tell the boys, you scam, bring the money to us, we will protect you, and no police can arrest you. That's what they're saying to the boys, right? Now, a whole lot of things are happening, and from the fact it has infiltrated our schools, we're heading down a dangerous path in this nation. And that's why the church has to rise up now and start going. Matter of fact, I'm heading to a school this morning to deal with just the boys, right? And to show them the dangers in having gatherings. And what the parents are doing too is creating mayhem. Because when they get themselves involved in witchcraft introduces spirits of evil in their houses. And this travel with spirits of violence. Listen, every community that is poverty-stricken, it has a level of violence in there. There are some communities that people who asked me to write recommendations. They told me, don't put their community name on their recommendation because they don't want nobody know that they're from the area because there's too much violence and the stigma is there. Why? Too much murder. Anywhere there is murder, any community there's too much murder, it follows by a curse, and the curse from the curse dying there is poverty. Okay? And this is traced from the book of Genesis, chapter 4, verse 9, when Cain killed his brother, and God put a curse on him. One of the things that God told him, he said, when thou tillest the ground, that's verse 12, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee any strength, and you're a fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth. In other words, God gives Cain a death sentence, yet he's alive. So these are some of the things that we need to open. That's why the church is standing out now, We have to go out and educate some of these communities of the evils that are taking place in them and help the men from these communities to understand that if they don't change, their community will be poverty-stricken for the rest of their lives. And the church has that responsibility to go there, educate. It's not the whole aspect of us just being in our four walls anymore. We have to hit communities, and begin to educate men in these communities. The dangers that they're putting themselves in. I've buried too many bright men. Too many of them.
We want to bring back in Mr. Thorpe because of the unique position he holds as someone who even right now, is still working with primary school students and has also worked in the high school system. Mr. Thorpe,
Yes, sir.
in relation to what Bishop just said,
Hmm.
the level of evil and occultic activity taking place, which Bishop has said, well, from what he has said, it is clearly, in his opinion anyway, compounding the problem of violence in schools. What are your thoughts, and how, if at all, can children be assisted to overcome and cease and desist from engaging in these activities, Mr. Thorpe?
Well, you have to look at it from a society perspective, a socialization perspective as well. Our students have lost a lot socially, and they are also lost what they call learning and socialization loss. And working with children, what some of the things that have really, we have to understand that there was an alarming, I think the data that came out, I think a year ago, was that there was a high absenteeism among our children because the online platform was just not meeting the needs of our students socially and academically. I think it was around 120,000 students. Now, just imagine 120,000 students not engaged in learning and in various activities that the school usually give. And then you have the parents now, they were thrown with some of the major responsibilities of what, because they used to go to work, but now they had to also be now teaching their students. So the pandemic created this, what I'd say, added fire when you put in fuel to the fire, and things got very compounded, and you had a lot of now more mental issues coming up. So what is more present to me? You see a lot of more conduct disorders. You see a lot of more mental issues among the students, and a lot of them, the home environment is not stable, as the pastor is giving reference to. Some of these things are coming from that social agency, the home. And we have to understand that the home is the first place where students learn. And the school is like a support mechanism. A lot of time we think the school is the home. The school is not the home. But the school works in collaboration with the stakeholders like the home. And a lot of times the homes were not very, very stable. And what we're seeing is it was there before, but the pandemic really lifted up our skirts. That's what actually took place. And a lot of us now maybe know that it's just really coming to the forefront now. The social issues, the home issues, that is what is happening, and that's what we're seeing. So, and I do believe in a more pragmatic approach. Even though we're seeing these things, I believe there are more solutions, as we said, we're supposed to tackling. And one of the things, as I would agree with the pastor, the social intervention is very, very critical, especially from a spiritual side as well as a social side. And the church plays a very key role in curbing that. Because I'm a product of the church, and I can testify personally that the church social intervention can be very critical in this time. And they need to pull up their socks as well and join with the schools as well to bring an amicable solution to the problem. Even though things are, it can be, because it's just that they need to be re-socialized to the classroom now. And most of them didn't have access to guidance counselors like they used to. Most of the people, the teachers that they used to talk to were not there. They were online. So just imagine. And then we know that there were many of them who were already being abused. So maybe that escalated. So we have to look at what is, we have to be careful of something called fundamental attribution error. A lot of times when we see these things happening, we would say we'll attribute to the child that is, I saw the picnic did born, or I saw them always behave. But we have to look at things. Why is a child angry? Is a child angry because they have a personal issue or trait, or they're angry because something happened?
Understood. Thank you for that, Mr. Thorpe. And following on what you just said in terms of social intervention, It's one thing to intervene to assist the children, whether high school, primary school, even though the focus of the discussion is really on high schools.
Yes.
But the environment that the child or the children are in doesn't necessarily change because you intervene in relation to the child. So, do you have any thoughts or recommendations in that regard?
Repeat that question.
I know well. In other words, you can help the child,
Yes.
but the child is still living in the same environment. How do you help the child whilst they're in the same environment and the environment in which the child is might not have changed?
Well, this goes back, it really goes back to exposing the child to an alternative. For example, I was a part of an a church organization that did an intervention in, I can't remember that community. It was one of those volatile communities. And one of the intervention that we did, like for every summer, we'd pull out these students for 2 weeks out of that community. And we had them in a camp in which they were exposed to various, what we call positive reinforcement or positive values. And we would get resources and speakers. And I can testify today that those students, many of them are very productive. And they were coming from a volatile community. And the church was a part of that. And we need to start getting very practical, and we also need to employ the spiritual and the psychosocial or the so-called emotional variables to help our students or to build them up, because they are at a very sensitive age. And even right now, what is going on at the high school? I was in a meeting yesterday, I think it's Dr. Troop. Right now, we are having psychosocial week in the high school, because I think it's around grade 10. The data is basically saying where the core behavioral conduct issues are happening, conduct disorder issues are happening. And right now, we are in what they'd call an intervention drive to re-socialize these students. Because right now the Dean of Discipline is on board, the guidance councils are on board, and what they're doing is not just regular classes. They are now having what you call psychosocial classes, life skill classes to orientate these students back into the classroom and to give these students a voice, because many times the students are not being heard. There's no outlet.
Very interesting, Mr. Thorpe. It does sound as if there is hope, but it is who will take the bull by the horn. We literally have seconds left. Bishop Edwards, in a few seconds, any final word you want to leave with us? Even a prayer?
Yes. So the three things I looked at there is that for 2 years, the kids been locked down in their homes. You know, if you're going to bring them back in the school environment, there should have been, as Mr. Stark said, the socialization. You know, get back the people, the kids, them back into a setting where they understand they're not at home. At home, they are faced with the computers. Some of them are not learning, you know, from school. Some of them are teaching them on the computer.
Or they're learning the wrong things on the internet.
Yes, Mr. Stokeley.
I think we have to leave it there this morning, Bishop. I think we're out of time for this segment, but I think we understand your message, Bishop. I want to thank Bishop Dr. Rohan Edwards, as well as Mr. Feliciano Thorpe, for being with us in this segment. Thank you for your time and for your thoughts. Very interesting and very important. And the theme, pragmatism, coming from Mr. Thorpe. Thank you for that too, sir. Listeners, please stay with us. We'll be right back with the Morning Watch.
Apply today for a DBJ recovery line of credit or go digital loan to help you find a way. The time by JN Bank Small Business Loan is 7:30 a.m. on Love 101.
Fish for lunch, so is that me doing? Me can't eat healthier, and me don't have to scale one fish. They make all the fish I want in different flavor and style. Plus, canned fish more reasonable.
Attention shoppers! Buy Grace Mackerel, Grace Sardines, and Grace Tuna. It's the healthy, easier, and more affordable choice for Lent.
Hold my spot in the line. I'm gonna pick up some more Grace Mackerel and Grace Sardine, yeah?
Grace has your fish for Lent. Value deals in participating stores.
From
From generation to generation, Jamaicans have depended on J&B Bank to make the pride and joy of providing a safe place for their families possible. Now, with no processing fees and no down payment mortgage options, you can open the door to your own sweet home, a legacy to hand to your next generation. Visit jnbank.com to get pre-approved today. J&B Bank will help you find a way.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. Let's take a look now at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. We have here in the Gleaner. This is from Major General Anthony Anderson, the police commissioner. It reads, low pay not fueling police corruption. And we turn to the Jamaica Observer. Among the stories we have here, Wholeness defends decision to nominate Johnson Smith as a candidate for Commonwealth Secretary General. And of course, the reference to Wholeness is obviously to the Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister Most Honorable Andrew Holness. And of course, Johnson Smith is our Foreign Affairs Minister, Kamina Johnson Smith. Those and many other stories in both major daily newspapers. Of course, coming up, we will have our feedback from our social media question, Facebook or YouTube. Share your responses there. And of course, we have our WhatsApp question, Facebook question, which is how much confidence do you have in our security forces and crime plan? If you haven't done so yet, leave your responses in our Facebook or YouTube. Love One on FM Jamaica Live, and also WhatsApp comments and voice notes too. 876-997-3125 using hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll be right back.
Did staying at home increase the tension between you and your partner? Did it strengthen the love or expose the hidden cracks in your marriage? Are you growing apart or are you growing closer? Join us this Thursday, April 7, inside the Truly Marvelous program for a rebroadcast with host Colleen Beckles and co-host Dr. Dylan Toussaint as they take a look at reasons you should consider marriage therapy. That's to have and to hold a rebroadcast feature this Thursday, April 7 at 5:30 p.m. on the family station, Love 101.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. Deidre, do we have any comments or voice notes in relation to our Facebook and WhatsApp question? How much confidence do you have in our security forces and crime plan?
Yes, we do. We have a message from Sister Matilda Wainwright.
Good morning, Sister Deidre. Thanks very much. Sister Deidre, thanks very much for that quote. It is such a blessing to me. And as for Brother Stokely's question about the confidence in the crime plan, I have confidence in what I can see of the crime plan. But I would have greater confidence if those who are activating it publicly, when they are saying how much they have been successful, I would think that it were very important for them to credit their success greatly to God and do it publicly, because no matter what they are doing, no matter how much money they have to offer, it is because of God why we have any success. And I always, from my points, just thank God for the whatever breakthrough is announced. Okay, so that is it. Greater confidence would be there if they acknowledge their dependence on God for greater guidance and attribute to Him the thanks for their success and protection, even as it is activated. Thank you very much.
Very interesting and a pretty lengthy voice note there as well. Any other comments or messages as yet, Deidre?
We do have a comment on Facebook about the first watch. Erin Denden says that school in Jamaica no good again. She was vacationing in Jamaica and was sitting on the balcony where she was staying, and she heard some foul words from the high school students who were waiting for the bus across the street. And these words are coming from several boys, and she was very shocked because they were so boisterous.
You know, some of these things are deeply concerning, Deidre, and it appears as if every time we try to find solutions, we still find more problems. But some of the comments made in the first watch are interesting, and some of the solutions proposed, hopefully, are workable. Well, we move right into the second watch, unless there are any other comments, Deidre.
No, no other comments at this time.
Move right into the second watch. Now, what makes for a successful crime plan and a successful security? What helps to make security forces successful in tackling crime, and what is key to finding any strategies that can work, and what are the powers that are key to ensuring that whatever plans and strategies are employed are actually working or are even workable to begin with. And what are we doing right now that's right, and what are we doing right now that's not so right? According to a recent report published in Loop News, we have retired Rear Admiral Hardley Lewin, former Chief of Staff of the Jamaica Defense Force and former Commissioner of Police. It is indicated, he said, that some crime measures are a waste of human resources, and he also said that criminals are thinking and we are not thinking. Criminals are thinking and we are not thinking. We have as our guest for this second watch retired Rear Admiral Hardley Lewin himself, former Chief of Staff of the Jamaica Defense Force and former Commissioner of Police. Good day, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Marshall. I'm fine. Good morning to your viewers.
Great having you, sir. And we are not only happy that you're on, but you do appear to be well, and we thank God for that as well, sir.
Thank you.
Now, sir, I'm going to be looking at the very same article that came out in Loop News. And I'm going to start with what you could call the subheadline or the subcaption. Criminals are thinking and we are not thinking. Let us start there, because it would appear as if many persons, governments ad nauseam in this country, have attempted to tackle crime, especially since the times when the gun became a major tool of use. There was political violence. There remains violence. And the proliferation of weaponry, high-powered weaponry, is in use. And it appears as if the powers that be are at their wits' end. Should they really be at their wits' end? And why did you say that criminals are thinking and we are not thinking, sir?
Thank you very much. I think there are some truths that we have to clearly understand if we're going to contextualize the discussion, and you kind of touched on it. For several decades, we've carefully nurtured, wittingly or unwittingly, the creation of what we commonly call the crime monster. And I will not get into an analysis of the reasons for it. We developed a higher and higher tolerance for murders, violence, and mayhem and indiscipline. Now that the thing is loose and running amok, we have to deal with it. And the other truth is that it can be dealt with. but it's a very, very complex issue touching on areas far outside the scope of the police or the security forces. We're talking about something that we have developed over several decades. And of course, we seem to be seeking instantaneous answers, but we have got to set the problem in terms of what do we need to do now to cauterize the high murder rate? What do we need to do now to bring back some discipline on the road? Because I think everything is connected. What do we need to do now to restore public trust and confidence, or at least start to do now as an immediate step? Then we have the medium to long-term things that we need to do. In that area, I think the government, the police, have initiated a number of those issues. We talk about the numbers of police officers. We're talking about the terms and conditions of service, which are very poor, by the way. When the commissioner said that low pay is not what fueling corruption, I tend to agree with him, but I don't like to talk about pay. I like to talk about terms and conditions of service. Because when you speak to police officers, they are aggrieved by many other issues other than pay. And so we must not take pay out of it and treat that as a standalone. So we are into, in my view, and I'm just picking a figure, I could be 10 plus or 10 or minus 10 years. We're into a program, it seems to me, of at least 20 years to try and restore this country to some sense of civility. But
some sense of civility.
Yes. Because we're talking about things such as fixing the homes, what happens in the homes, fixing the education, fixing opportunities. In other words, what is bedeviling us for a lot of people in this country is what I sum up in one word: hopelessness. Hopelessness.
Understand, sir. Understand.
And the police cannot fix that. So to come back to the question that you asked, once we understand all that background, well, let me say in a general sense. So it means that there has to be an all hands on deck approach beginning now. We won't see the fruits of those labors immediately.
Yeah.
We're talking about the fixing of the homes. What is the role of the church? What is the role of the educators? How we're going to start systematically dealing with corruption in the society at all levels, by the way. How are we going to change the notion of what corruption means to many of our people who don't see corruption as corruption?
Yes.
How are we going to change the system so that you can get something done from an agency without having a links?
Yes.
Without having somebody who's going to push things along for you. Those are things that we have to start to deal with. Those are very, very long-term issues. It's so like, in a sense, you're changing culture in many respects. Where does the church come in?
So you're seeing the monster as being more than just the murder rate. The monster has multiple tentacles, including even things that are considered minor by some people, such as having a link to get something done.
Absolutely, because we all believe somehow that through policing, we can stem the murder rate to a level that is, let's say, at some kind of standard, because you're going to have some murders. But we must.
Retired Rear Admiral, I'm going to ask you to just hold that thought for one moment, because I see where we are upon a break. Listeners, please stay with us. We'll be right back on the Morning Watch.
Get the best health plan as well as fabulous discounts. Visit ccrponline.org today or call 469-1944 and live life to the fullest. The time by CCRP is
7:45 a.m. on the Sound of Love.
JN Money Card. Send the money, more want withdraw in a hurry. JN Money Card free with your TRN and your ID. And when me no walk with cash, me just swipe like that. From abroad to card. Get the JN Money Card. It's safe, convenient, and free. JN Money Card sent from abroad. JN Money Card.
Available at JN Money locations across Jamaica. Conditions apply.
The first sound they make is to simply let the world know they're here. And then it's our duty to help them show the world why they're here in the first place.
Give them every advantage with the Guardian Achiever, a plan that provides for their educational dreams and protects their health and life in the process. For more information, call 888-4LIFE to speak to an advisor or visit myguardiangroup.com.
Connect with Brata! Theater Kia! Enjoy all your favorite apps and more on Jamaica's fastest network. Activate the Prime Brata bundle for as low as $175 by dialing *147 number sign from your Digicel phone or in the My Digicel app. Connect!
Alright, connect with Brata. Digicel Prime Brata. Data can done.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in the second watch, and we're having a very relevant and very important conversation with retired Rear Admiral Hardly Lewin, former Chief of Staff of the Jamaica Defence Force and former Commissioner of Police. The topic, defeating crime. Defeating crime is the topic of our second watch. Now, retired Rear Admiral, you're making a point before the break. Please continue. And in relation to some of the things you said when you started, you did indicate that this is something that can be fixed. It may not be done in a short period of time, but it can be fixed. Continue, Rear Admiral, retired Rear Admiral.
Well, there's no may about it. It will not be fixed in a short space of time because when you look at the enormity of the things that need to be fixed, you're talking about a generation or generations in order to fix all the things that need to be addressed. But so that's going to medium to long term. And I said 20, 30 years probably. And if anybody argues and said 50, I would not argue with them. So that's one side. What is really occupying our mind right now is what do we need to do now, immediate thing, to cull what is happening. And that is where we must look at that separately from the long term. Let me say it again. A lot of things and initiatives and strategies that are being put in place to fix certain systemic issues, let's say in the police and so on, are steps in the right direction for the medium long term, the effects of which we will not see now. But what we need to do immediately to cull the murder rate is largely a security force issue.
Explain that.
It is, meaning that it is what actions, what strategies, what operational measures should the security forces put in place to deal with guns, gangs, murders, and all the other crimes. And they have to do it with the resources that they have. If you talk about manpower, and we all agree it's woefully short of the numbers that are required, we don't have the luxury that Rudy Giuliani did in New York. He went out and hired 6,000 people because the United States system is different. It takes us 2 years to train a police officer. You've got to recruit, you've got to train, he goes on probation, and that's the end of 2 years after you have selected him. You have to go through the process before. So we don't have that luxury. So what do we do with the tools that we have in the toolbox, with the personnel that we have, with the equipment that we have? This is where a lot of what I said, which you quoted, was focused on. I was never a believer in state of emergency.
I was going to ask you about that, and I notice you have some reservations there. Why?
My reservations are, and in fact, I'm not a Johnny come lately in terms of jumping on a bandwagon, because 4 days after, on the 22nd of January, 2018, I wrote a letter to the editor speaking just to that issue, saying that it is not the right tool. You cannot use a flathead screwdriver in a Phillips screw head. It will show you some results. It will show you some results. But in and of itself, it is not going to solve the problem. And it's a tool that was misused. Because as we subsequently learned, there were only two pieces of the tools that you do not have under normal policing. One is the detention of persons, preventive detention, where you suspend habeas corpus. That is the requirement to put persons before the courts.
Yes.
For them to have a hearing. And secondly, soldiers could not operate independently, which, by the way, I do not think is a desirable thing in any case.
Okay.
The argument is made that it is a force multiplier and it gives operational thing. I get that. But I don't think it's a good thing, but we don't want to get in there for the moment.
Okay.
I think just throw in a state of emergency out there. Yes, people will flee. Where is the rest of the plan? Because they have to go someplace. And when I talk about being a waste of human resource, we have all driven through these areas to see soldiers and policemen sitting down on the tents, everybody on their cell phones.
I noticed that. I have noticed
some of those measures that I pass them, it's pouring in rain. I'm sorry for the poor buggers sitting there. And I'm sure all of them must be thinking to themselves, why am I here? What am I achieving by being here? Having said all of that,
yeah,
I cannot explain it, but having said all of that, let me say this. I have every confidence in the leadership, and the leadership is not just the commissioner or the chief of defense staff. It is the staff around them, because they work through their staffs. I have every confidence that they can come up with a combination of the tools that they have in order to make life more uncomfortable for the criminals and the gunmen, because that's what you want to do. You have to keep them off balance.
Yes.
They move too freely. They're doing too many. They are not fearful of very much because they don't think they're going to be caught.
The risk of being caught for them is low.
It's low. So they have to be kept off balance. They must be guessing. They must be the ones who are worried and concerned. Should I do this? Will I see a policeman around there? That kind of thing is the questions they must ask themselves.
So without
I don't want to get into detailed operational thing, but I am saying that the leadership has those abilities, and I have confidence in it. And but you see, once you say a state of emergency, it kind of it seems to be the prize bull of the strategy. And you seem to be doing that almost and not thinking about other things.
What about your view on curfews? You haven't mentioned that. You mentioned states of emergency. What about curfews?
Curfews is a tool. You don't need a state of emergency for that. Stop and search is a tool. You don't need an emergency for that. Roadblocks, vehicle checkpoints is a tool. You don't need state of emergency for that. Raids is a tool. You don't need a state of emergency for that. And I can go on and on and on and on.
No.
The tools are finite, by the way. The tools are finite. And let me make one more point.
Yes.
There is no magical tool that any commissioner or chief of defense staff is going to bring. Because there's no magical tool that exists that we're looking for some holy grail. So changing these people makes no sense. It is how we combine and use the various tools together. And the tool you're using in Kingston, the combination of, is not necessarily the same combination you're going to use in Western Jamaica. It's a different scenario. So these things have to be pushed to the local level.
Now, looking at the same article in Loop News, you seem to be indicating that when you're about to even use some of these tools, there really need not be any media announcement. So if you're going to impose a state of emergency, the last thing you should be doing is announcing it ahead of time. Do you want to develop on that, retired Rear Admiral? Because I think what you're saying is that you're already giving the criminal elements notice as to what you're going to do. Assist us there, sir.
I'm glad you asked that because, quite frankly, you are not giving anything away. Those involved in criminality know and already have left the space before the announcement. So this is the nature of operational secrecy.
And
nothing is kept secret.
This points to another challenge that the security forces may have, where there is unfortunately communication between members of the security forces and persons who are not. And these persons who are not are themselves engaged in criminal activity, sir? If you would care to answer or dare to answer.
Can you phrase that again, please? I didn't quite.
In other words, some of the gunmen know police officers and vice versa.
Oh, of course.
And that is why the gunmen know ahead of time what's going to happen. Yes,
and look, we've seen the recent thing of the arrest of some police officers. And sometimes, you know, during the war, there's a statement: loose lips sink ships. People speak freely without any concern for operational secrecy, and sometimes inadvertently let something slip. Police officer knows he's going off to Western Jamaica. He might tell his wife. His wife goes to the hairdressing parlor and says, "Boy, you know, Paul is going off for 2 weeks. What is he going to do, boy? Something going on. Don't even tell me exactly what, but something big is happening." And then it goes out. You may not know the time, you may not know, but it spreads.
Yes.
So I don't think announcing it also has another factor.
Okay.
People are going to be affected by it. And I don't see anything wrong in people knowing the boundaries, knowing the rules, knowing what's going to affect them. But here's the crunch now from an operational perspective. You know people are going to flee after you have made the announcement, those who did not know before.
Yes.
So where is the concurrent plan to catch them as they flee?
Yes.
You know it's going to happen. So you could announce something just to get them to rush out of a particular community, and you catch them as they leave.
Yes.
So it can be used as part of your tool.
Now, retired Rear Admiral, we know that you don't necessarily want to make any suggestions that would give clues to persons who are engaged in criminal activity. But if there's any thought you'd like to leave with us before we wrap, because we literally have seconds left, what would that thought be?
This thing about not speaking to public and telling the people what they are doing and so on is not something I buy. Before the Americans went into Iraq, Colin Powell gave the strategy away. He told them, he said, we're going to cut it off and we're going to kill it. You cannot tell people when you are going to launch the operation and precisely where the operation is going to be. But to talk about your strategies and so on, to me is nonsensical to be overly secretive about that.
Okay.
However, like I said, the tools are finite. Depending on the space, you put together the combination of tools that you have to deal with that space, but don't put them in place and just leave them. They have got to change. That's how you're going to keep the criminals off balance. So you don't fire and forget it.
Only because of time, we have to leave it there this morning. Have to keep the criminals off balance. That's what you're leaving with us, sir.
Absolutely.
Have to leave it there today only because of time. I want to thank you, retired Rear Admiral, for being with us. Thank you for your time and for your thoughts. And of course, thank you, listeners, for being with us. Join us again tomorrow as we look at other topical and controversial issues, and visit our Love 101 FM YouTube channel and Facebook page for this and all other Love 101 FM programs. Then listen to the Morning Watch on our Love 101 app. Download it today, the #1 gospel station in Jamaica. That's who we are, Love 101 FM. Thanks to our producer, Kathy Gale, and to our guests. I am handing it back to Love in the Morning with Deidre.
Thank you, Stokeley. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
NHF beneficiaries enrolled for diabetes can get a glucometer with use of their NHF card. Apply online at nhf.org.jm. The time by the NHF is
8 a.m.